Welcome to Caseback Watches. My name is Tim, and in this video I'm going to test reality because I will figure out the price, the market price for a certain watch. I will place the watch on Chrono24. I will sell it there, and in another episode I will tell you how it went. And in this video I will share my method how to figure out a realistic market price. Yes, I think this could be a very interesting line of videos where I really sell watches and where I share the method how to figure out prices, what's important, what's not important with you. And then I will actually sell these watches on Chrono24, only on Chrono24, and in follow-up videos I will explain what went right, what went wrong, what happened along the way with you, so that you can actually see did it work out or not. And in this first video I want to explain a bit the method, then we will go on Chrono24 so that you can see the actual research. And the watch I'm going to sell is the Tissot Tissonic. This is a tuning fork watch from the 70s and now without battery for long storage, but you will find an in-depth review here on the channel. I leave a link in the description. There you can see the thing in full glory, in full action. You can hear the sound of the tuning fork. You will find out everything about the mechanism. So this is our first piece to sell. And to give you some rough numbers, early 70s I think. And case diameter here is 35 millimeters, length, lug to lug is 40, height is 10.5, lug width 18, and of course we have a plexiglass crystal, and the condition is superb. It's just crazy. It's close to new old stock, and it might happen that I advertise it as new old stock, although I don't like the term because it's just a disgrace what's on the market under that term new old stock with dings and dangs and yeah, wreckage basically. Okay, but before we go on Chrono24, let's address some important points. What's important, what's not important. First, of course, the brand. It depends largely on the brand if you can sell a watch or not, especially if you try it locally. If you want to sell a certain watch in your area, in your hometown, in your country, then there might be some brands that are not super wanted there, okay? Then you have a bit of a problem. But when you're willing to trade internationally, globally, then, believe it or not, the brand is not longer so important, at least for the, let's say, well-known brands, because every brand has a bit of a fan base around the entire globe, okay? So if you have something rather small, a bit exotic, then it might be a good idea to use Chrono24 for the entire globe, okay? That's very important to keep in mind here. And with our Tissot here, this is pretty easy. Everybody knows Tissot, but there might be a lot of competition. And the next important aspect is the model, because you can have a nice brand like Omega and you have, let's say, a Seamaster, but Seamaster is a line, okay? And so rule of thumb, be as specific as possible with your model. For example, with our Tissot here, this is not the Tissot tuning fork. The tuning fork is the mechanism behind it. It's the Tissot Tissonic Eletronic. That's the actual watch. And so it always might be a good idea to find out the exact reference number of your model and put it in the listing. And now comes the heavy hitter, and that's the condition, which is super important. If you have a damaged watch or a watch in poor condition, you will not be able to sell it at a decent price. There is just no way in a let's say, with honest methods. So if you have a nice watch, but the condition is affected by scratches, for example, might be a good idea to go to the watchmaker if and only if the watchmaker can polish watches and invests 40-50 bucks for a nice polishing job. And there are watchmakers, they have never polished a watch, believe it or not. It's strange, but it happens. I polish watches myself. Today I have a nice collection of equipment for that, and if you're interested, let me know in the comments, then I will share this knowledge also with you, or at least the tools I use for that, okay? So condition, very, very important. And of course this means that the watch runs without any restrictions. Even if you are a private seller, you cannot give a warranty, but it's important that at least by delivery the watch is in full working order, okay? And often people say that part of the condition is the service, if is the watch service or not, might be true. And rule of thumb for me personally, if you have a watch that is younger than 5 years, it doesn't need a service. Of course, people will ask for a service because they want a lower price with that strategy. But technically there's no necessity to service a 5-year-old watch. I know the industry sees this sometimes differently, but from my actual experience I can tell you, people don't expect a fresh service for a rather new watch, obviously. And in case of our Tissot tuning fork watch, so in the realm of vintage watches, people often are pretty realistic about a service. Of course, when something is new old stock, of course it wasn't serviced every 5 years or every 10 years. That would add up to 5 to 6 services. This would create sometimes more damage with the threat of the caseback, for example, than usage. And so people are pretty realistic about that. It's definitely possible to sell a vintage watch without the fat service bill for that watch, okay? And speaking of bills and documentation, a service without a documentation is not a service. Let's put it drastically simple, because nobody will believe you. There is not that legal definition what is a service and what's just checking the watch. And so honest people often write, was checked by the watchmaker in 2024 and runs perfectly fine, or was oiled 6 months ago, something like that. When somebody really says this watch was served last week, then he or she must have a proof for that. And so in case of our Tissot, I can happily state in full running order without any restrictions, quick set works, everything works. Now without battery for storage reasons, but before the delivery takes place, I will of course equip the watch with a brand new battery for a nice wearer experience. And the next point is box and papers. Are they important? Yes and no. For newer watches, they are more important, okay? Because when you see a 6-month-old watch still under warranty without box and papers and invoices and everything, it's a bit fishy. It happens that people lose these things. It happened to me as well. I did something stupid, box and papers were gone. And then people, of course, argue that there is something fishy, that perhaps somebody has stolen that watch and wants to sell it now quickly, something like that. So newer watch, then box and papers definitely are important. With vintage watches, with our Tissot, for example, people are more realistic in my experience, because when somebody buys 1972, 1973 watch, not super luxurious, it's very rare that people keep all the tags and the box and the papers for this watch. So it's very, very likely that these vintage watches will come without box and papers. People do tolerate this, and so it's not really a problem. Next point is the price, and we will figure out the price for the Tissonic in a second on Chrono 24. But first, little disclaimer, forget what you have paid for this watch. And in our case, this is very lucky. I bought this watch 2019. I have no idea what I've paid for that back then. No idea, not even the region of the price. I just simply cannot remember this. And that's of course good, because then we were not influenced by our own personality, because sometimes we think something is very valuable because we own it. And this is of course rubbish. There's a market with demand and supply, and this makes the market price. And so this is the method to figure out prices, is to stay away from your own ego and recognize and acknowledge the facts that the market is presenting to you.
Okay, and here we are at chrono24.com. Normally I use the German version with euros, but for you guys I've chosen here chrono24.com with US dollars so that we have easier reference. Recent searches, I've tried it out a bit with Tissot and tuning fork, and so this is the way Tissot Tissonic, and now let's see what we have there. We have 5 listings here, okay? And you can always go from low to high, and then you have 244 to 1159. This is our price range, but we have to bear in mind that these are suggestions, okay? But of course you can have a different opinion, and so then you can suggest a price. And very likely then this person will sell you that watch, for example, for 200. Little disclaimer, by the way, I will not talk bad about one of these sellers. I will not comment on the quality of the listings. This is not the goal of this video, okay? These are only examples, and it's perfectly possible that these are good sellers, good people, honest listings. But we have now a rough orientation what we can charge between 244 and 1159, but I think it's a bit too little data here. Let's erase the Tissot, because it's very likely that somebody wants a tuning fork watch from the 60s and 70s, but the brand is not mandatory, and so it's very likely that this person then makes a bigger search, and that's what we're doing right now. And now you can again see prices from 160 for a Boulevard Accutron, always a very nice brand in this context, and it goes up to several thousands of dollars because of yellow gold mostly. Okay, yellow golden watches. And now we have to, we have to check these listings and we have to see how many watches our watch can beat. So let's just start very naive with this first watch. The Bulova Accutron is of course a bigger name than our Tissot Tissonic. So this brand wins in my opinion, but you see that the condition is rather bad, and there we have something not so pleasant. Some people, very few people, like these engravings from other people. I mean, when there is Michael Jackson, then of course this changes the entire scenario. But MAH 1974 is close to a damage in my eyes. So this is not really wanted from most sellers, and so this is perhaps one of the reasons why this watch is relatively affordable. No original box, no original papers, okay. Condition as said, heavily worn watch. And again, I don't want to make this listing bad. This can be a super legit seller with a realistic estimation of the price. But I'm absolutely confident that our Tissot Tissonic beats this watch. So we are over this 160 as a first suggestion, let's say. Then we have another Bulova Accutron, same thing, because what I can see here, the condition is also heavily worn. Photos are there. There you have good information. This is really an okay listing. No box, no papers, used. So that means massive signs of usage. Private seller, free shipping, all perfect. But I think our Tissot Tissonic can beat this watch, not because of the brand again, but because of the condition of the watch. Next thing, Longines Ultronic, never heard of that. 302. I would say the Tissonic in this context is in line with Longines, but again we have massive signs of usage. And I say this again, I don't want to bash the seller, can be a super realistic estimation. Watch is a square size. By the way, this is also a bit, I think the Tissot wins here by form, because not so many people love this TV format here. And so I think the Tissot goes over these $302 US with ease. Then we have a Seiko. The Tissot, in my opinion, wins by brand and wins by condition. Again, you have massive, not corrosion, but I think this is plated. Plated, no box, no papers as always. What is it? Very little information, but I think it's chrome plated. So the Tissot has a steel case, wins here by brand, wins by case and by condition. Then we have another Longines Ultronic with a again with a very quirky case. I'm sure there are some fans here, but I can also mention that this is hard to sell. We have signs of usage. Yeah, there you have dings and dangs all over the watch. So I'm pretty confident again that our Tissonic is the winner here. Steel case. Netherlands, yeah, 350 euros is this, so very good. 406 US, and again, I'm pretty confident that the Tissot beats this watch. Then we have another Bulova Accu Quartz, Bulova Diamond Accu Quartz in in O. Yeah, okay. Condition, I think you don't have to use many words here. Tissot wins this. Then we have a Zenith, very interesting, rare, I think. This Zenith could win by brand, but again, condition, and the condition here is not as good as the condition of the Tissonic. And so this watch is beaten. And now we have an interesting row here, Omega Seamaster, and this Longines Ultronic, and there we have our first Tissot. So now we have really competitors, especially with this Omega. Let's have a look. This watch wins by brand in my opinion, and condition is not super bad. It's actually pretty good for the watch. I mean, this looks now drastic on these large images because this is a very honest image, we must say. There, this person doesn't hide anything, and you have signs of usage. I mean, massive signs of usage, but not a real damage. And I mean, we are in which year? 1971. This is really okay for such a watch, but okay, here you have some damages. Here you have some damages. So I would say that Tissot Tissonic wins by condition again, because the condition is such a big player here. Excellent size, 36.5 from Poland. And so, yeah, decent listing. And 746 might be a smidgen too high, but it's not unrealistic in my eyes. Not unrealistic. So here we have strong competitors, but I think we can make it to the next row. And here you have, again, strong competitors. Omega Genève. Wow, I mean, this is just crazy. All right, that's a cool watch. Omega Genève from 1972. Condition looks very nice. Looks very, very good. There you have some dings around this ridge here. There are some scratches. Looks very good here. Minor scratches. So I'm happy to see that my Tissonic wins this by condition. Very honest, very well made, open movement. There you have the battery, and so very good listing, very professional. Oh wow, you can see the dial. Okay, this is a absolute pro listing here. Components. I mean, this is really good. There you can have some confidence in the seller, and it's a private seller. This is crazy. Wow. Crazy, crazy, crazy listing. I mean, I wish everybody could deliver something like that, but it's of course impossible. And now we have a price of 870. I'm absolutely sure that the Tissot Tissonic beats this watch by condition, but not by brand and not by listing. The listing is just crazy, crazy good. And so I think this is our final boss here. We will not go over this 870 US dollars, so we are in in this area. We are around 800 US dollars. This means, what is this in euro? Let's check the price. Here we have 800 US, translates to 690 euros. So we are around 700 euros as a starting price for the tuning fork watch. And this is the method in a nutshell. Okay, you can spend more time here, you can go more into detail, you can try out other watch models, other names, other quotes and stuff, but this is the basic logic. Okay, you don't make up a price like that, you actually check the market for competitors, and so that you have a realistic position between all of these watches. And so my personal takeaway from here is a value of the watch, or a opening position, I should say, of 800 US dollars or 700 euros.
Okay, welcome back. I hope I could explain this in a fashion and in a manner you can understand, you can apply. And little caveat, I've said this 700 euros is the price now. Even if you figure out a market price, a realistic market price for a watch, that doesn't mean that you can sell the watch in 2 weeks. I had watches on Chrono24 for 6 months and longer without lowering the price, and after 6 months somebody bought it. And this is, I think, connected with smaller markets. Because when you figure out a nice market price that is realistic, it can face a market that is relatively small. There are only a few people, and these few people don't buy a watch every day, okay? And so don't expect, when you apply this method, that you will sell the watch like that. It's always a very, very good idea to take it slow, to take your time. And when you sell the watch in 2 weeks, then it's great. When you sell it in 6 months for the money you wanted, then it's also totally okay. And my last job for this video now is to place the watch on Chrono24, and then I will deliver updates, what happened along the way, some stories, perhaps some successes, perhaps some quirky stories. Very often selling vintage watches that you meet people that are rather interesting and you're willing to tell another story. Okay, and that's all for this episode. Thank you very much for your attention, and until next time.